Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today I'm talking about the full Rhino Records Rocktober list. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure you go check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlists we put together every week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So Rhino Records has been doing this Rocktober event for quite a few years now, and this is two events that Rhino does during the year. They do Rocktober in October, and then they do Start Your Ear Off Right in January every year. It's like two events that Rhino does. So what they do for Rocktober is they put out a bunch of albums that a lot of them are either like have been out of print for a long time, or they'll do like limited edition color variants of an album, and they just do a lot of great releases. I think this year is the biggest list I think I've ever seen them do, though. There's a total of 26 albums coming out in October for Rocktober. So it's too long for me to do in just one video, so I'll probably break this up into two different videos to kind of go over the full list. Some of my favorite ones over the last several years, they did a bunch of great Alice Cooper titles. A few years ago, I think it was like 2016 that they did those. They did like Echo and the Bunnyman, I think 2 years ago. Last year they did a bunch of B-52s titles. They did Stooges, a couple of Stooges releases last year. I think they did Sex Pistols last year also. Like I said, just a bunch of great stuff every year that they put out for October. So Rhino normally spreads these releases out over the month of October, but this year they're doing something a little differently. They're kind of grouping them all together at the very beginning of the month. So you got 21 albums that are coming out on October 6th, and then you got another 5 albums that are coming out on October 13th. Like I said, I'm not sure what the reasoning was for that, but that's how they're releasing them this year. So I'll go down through them in alphabetical order. We'll start with October 6th. The first one you got is Aha, Hunting High and Low, released in 1985. It's their debut album. It's going to be on orange vinyl. It's going to run you about $25. Of course, Take On Me was the huge hit off of this album. A lot of people consider Aha one of those one-hit wonder bands from the 80s. But this is a great album, though. This one that I bought this, I picked up a copy of it. I think it was just reissued within the last year or two. I grabbed a copy of it, and I hadn't listened to it in probably 25, maybe 30 years. And I was really surprised how many other great tracks are on that album. It's definitely one to go back through and check out. I will say that most of the stuff for Rocktober is all reasonably priced. A lot of it's right around 25 to $30. The next one is the self-titled debut album from Bad Company. This is going to be on crystal clear diamond vinyl. It's going to run you $26. This is probably one of my favorite debut albums of the 70s. My parents were big fans of Bad Company, so I listened to this album a lot growing up. Sticking with Bad Company, you got 10 for 6 also coming out. This was released in 1985. This is a compilation of 10 tracks off of their first 6 albums. That's where the title comes from. It's going to be on Milky Clear vinyl. It's going to run you $25. I'm not a big fan of Bad Company. I've listened to, like I said, with their debut album. I've listened to that a bunch over the years. I love their debut album. I never really got into a whole lot of stuff after like the early part of the 80s, though. So this 10 for 6 release and their debut is I'm probably good with Bad Company with just those two releases. And then you've also got The Band, The Last Waltz coming out. This one's going to be on black vinyl. It was released back in 1978. It's a soundtrack for arguably one of the best concert films ever released, at least in the concert films from the 70s. It was one of those classic ones. There were so many great concert films that came out over that decade, but this is a really good one. This one's going to be a little more expensive, though. This one's going to run you about $60. It's a triple album, though, and that it's one that I've got to revisit. I haven't listened to this one probably since I was in my early to mid-teens, so I probably should go back and check that one out. We're also going to reissue of an album that, in my opinion, is one of the greatest rock albums of the late 60s, early part of the 70s. This is Buffalo Springfield again. This is a mono version. It's going to be on clear vinyl. This was released in 1967 as Buffalo Springfield's second studio album. And it's going to run you $25. I think the big thing, what really helped this album was their first album was okay, but their first album was recorded like super quick. It was over like a few weeks, several week period. Whereas with Buffalo Springfield again, they were able to sit down, really take their time in the recording studio. It was like a 9 or 10 month process to finally get that whole album done. It's just a masterpiece. I think it's hands down their best album, and it's definitely going to be worth the $25 price. And then you've also got the Cars Greatest Hits coming out, released in 1985. This is a compilation covering their first 5 albums. It's going to be on translucent red vinyl. It was a hugely successful compilation. I mean, it went 6 times platinum here in the U.S. And it kind of like with Bad Company, the Cars is probably another one of those bands where I'm probably good with just a compilation like this and maybe 1 or 2 more albums from the band. You also got Foreigner's self-titled debut album coming out for Rocktober. This is one of those albums that I feel like as big as like 4 and some of their other albums were, like, I think this album kind of gets lost in their discography, but it's a fantastic album. It was released in 1977. This one's going to be on clear vinyl. It's going to run you $25. So you got Cold as Ice and Feels Like the First Time were the 2 big hits that were off this album. 2 of my favorite Foreigner tracks. And then the only thing that's like going to be super expensive for Rocktober is this next release. It's a big box set though. This is Grateful Dead, Madison Square Garden, March 9th, 81. This is going to be on black vinyl. It's going to run you $125. It's 5 LPs, so I get why it's so expensive. This was released last year on CD. They did like a big 17 CD box set. It was called In and Out of the Garden, Madison Square Garden, 81, 82, 83. Had a whole bunch of stuff on here. But this is the first time this great concert's ever been available on vinyl. The next one is one of those albums that I kind of consider the pinnacle of 60s psychedelic rock, even though I'm not a fan of a lot of that psychedelic stuff from the 60s. This is a really good album. I know a lot of people think this is a really overrated album and it's not worth really anything. It's kind of one okay song on there. But it is Iron Butterfly, In-A-Gadda Vida. This is was released in 1968. It was Iron Butterfly's second studio album. It's going to be on crystal clear diamond vinyl. It's going to run you $25. Like I said, I think it's kind of the pinnacle of 60s psychedelic rock. It was a huge album. It sold like over 30 million copies since it was released. So, I mean, it sold enough that a lot of people must like the album. So you got that coming out, and then you got Matchbox 20, Yourself or Someone Like You, released in 1996. It was their debut album. It's also going to run you $25. This is also on crystal clear diamond vinyl. This was the huge album that really kind of blew Matchbox 20 up and made them one of the biggest rock bands of the late 90s, early 2000s. And I'll end the first half of the list with 3 great albums from the MC5. The first one, this is Kick Off the Jams. This was released in 1969. It's a live album. So even though it's their first album, it's not their first studio album. This one's going to be on clear and red splatter vinyl. It's going to run you $25. So this is like the groundbreaking debut from the Motor City 5. Just a great album. This is one album that probably everyone out there knows. Most of you out there is probably the only MC5 album you've ever listened to. This was recorded live October 30th and 31st, 1968, the Grand Ballroom in Detroit, which was a great venue. Closed in the early part of the 70s, but a lot of big, huge acts played there over its time. So you got that coming out, and then you've also got Back in the USA coming out, released in 1970. This is technically their debut studio album, but it's their second album overall. This is going to be on clear vinyl. It's also going to run you $25. I would say this and Kick Out the Jams are probably 2 of the most influential rock albums of the late 60s, early part of the 70s. Influenced so many great bands and really kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of the punk stuff that happened in the mid to late 70s. I would say MC5 and the Stooges kind of laid a lot of that groundwork. Just a fantastic album. And then the third one is the only one that I haven't really listened to. I'm not really sure why. I just never really checked it out. It is High Time, released in 1971. It was their second studio album, third album overall. It's going to be on clear and yellow splatter vinyl. It's going to run you $25. Like I said, I really kind of need to go back and check this one out because I'm just unfamiliar with it. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know if you're interested in any of these Rhino Rocktober releases. Also, make sure you go back and check out episode 2 of this 2-part series I'm doing today. There's so many great albums. Like I said, 26 albums is really kind of hard for me to get through in less than 12 or 15 minutes. I don't want the videos to be too long. So make sure you go back and check out the second one. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.